We have Eddie Alvarez, Conor McGregor for the lightweight title in Madison Square Garden.
First time ever. New York just legalized mixed martial arts.
So whenever you ask anybody about the Alvarez and McGregor fight, you pretty much get the same answer for their predictions. You say, man, that's going to be a good fight. If it goes to the ground, Alvarez wins. If it's on the feet, McGregor wins. If it ends early, McGregor wins. If it's on the... I'm just saying this is the typical response you're going to get. Early in the fight, if it ends, it's probably McGregor. If it goes deep, it's probably Alvarez. I don't want to give those answers. I want to give straight up what you think is going to happen, not a if this happens, this guy wins, if this happens, this guy wins. I want to get straight to the point on this fight together here when we talk. Who do you think's going to win? Why do you think they're going to win? And don't just say, "Well, it's a good fight. We'll see what happens." We're not here to mess around today, folks.
Well, I mean, I'm going to start off by saying a lot of people kind of had some misconceptions as far as where McGregor stands. I mean, especially with the whole welterweight debacle, fighting Nate Diaz at welterweight, not once, but twice. And
I have my own thoughts about that, and I'll share that in just a minute.
And listen, folks, Nate Diaz is naturally a lightweight fighter, and he is, I believe he was a 5th-ranked fighter at the time, showing up to fight.
Actually, I think they said that he moved up to 5th after he beat McGregor. So he actually moved up beating McGregor in the lightweight. So he was, I think he was like 7th or so.
Yeah, that sounds about
right.
Going
into the first fight.
Right. But... you know, they moved it up to welterweight for the first fight because Nate was fighting on short notice. You know, naturally, they're gonna make the fight work, so he's gonna cut a little bit of weight just to kind of even things out. And then eventually, Conor said, "No, let's just fight at welterweight, make it easy on both of us." So,
which is probably a good idea, at least for the first fight.
Exactly.
Don't want Nate killing himself out there trying to make weight on 1 week's notice.
And as we know, Conor was bringing it to him a little bit in the first round, but that was
himself early.
Yep, and you know that played into Nate's game. In second round, he put it on him and finished him. But that second fight, in my opinion, should have never been at welterweight. From my understanding, it seemed like they just didn't want to taint his legacy a little bit.
I think McGregor just really saw a challenge in front of himself where he said, listen, I lost at this weight. I don't think anyone's ever going to believe I can win at it. I think he was just trying to prove himself. I think he wanted to prove it to himself, but also prove to everyone else, listen, weight, like he says, weight's nothing to me. And I think he believes that. You know what I mean? Like he even said it the other day. He said, I think it's frustrating that people say I can't cut back down to featherweight. Because he said, I can.
Right.
He said, well, if I have to,
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I will too, but I mean, the guy, what he does is talk. You know,
right.
He talks. That's his thing.
I mean, in my opinion, he could say that all he wants, but I mean, he's fighting a lightweight fighter at welterweight as well. But I mean, when we look at the facts, Conor McGregor's essentially a lightweight in terms of size. So when he moves up to welterweight, it's not like there's a huge disparity in their weights. I mean, I'd like to argue Nate might have been 10, 12 pounds heavier when, you know, on fight day.
I'm pretty sure he was 3 times the size of McGregor in that fight.
I don't know. I think you're...
Everyone, I mean...
at least that's what people would try to say to, you know, protect their boy McGregor. He was
literally 200 pounds more than McGregor in that fight.
And I guess I should say that, you know, I like McGregor, you know, to an extent. To an extent, I like Conor McGregor. And then what I'm getting to with my prediction here, or at least my analysis here, he's moving down to lightweight officially to fight the champ of the division. When he was formerly fighting Nate Diaz, who, when he fought him the first time, was the number 7 ranked lightweight, and when he fought him the second time, was the number 5 ranked lightweight. And I mean, he didn't look incredible against Nate Diaz. I mean, he looked like Conor McGregor, but... not the dominating featherweight Conor McGregor. So now he's moving down to lightweight to fight a killer in Eddie Alvarez. He's as tough as they come.
For sure.
And someone who brought it to Rafael Dos Anjos like that and finished him in the first round, he looked good. He's back with his trainer, Mark Henry, looking better than ever. And, I mean, I would even argue this is Conor's best stylistic matchup in the top 5.
Probably.
You look at the rest of them, Khabib, Tony Ferguson.
Ooh, I want to talk about that. After we're done with this, I want to talk about Tony Ferguson and McGregor.
Perfectly. But that's, I don't know. It's a tough matchup for McGregor. I think people aren't giving Alvarez enough credit, to be honest. I don't see him putting Alvarez away, and I think that Alvarez has more tools. He's a better wrestler than Nate Diaz. He doesn't have as much reach as Nate Diaz. But he can put those combos together, and he's got vicious power, and he's willing to jump into a brawl with Conor McGregor.
I have two theories, and I am by absolutely no means am an MMA expert. I am just starting to get into the sport really heavily, but I have two theories that I think about, two misconceptions about Conor McGregor that I'd like to share my thoughts on, see maybe where you stand on this. So there's two things. One of them is people say he tires out early. That's my one I'd like to address. Number two is his weight when he fought against Nate Diaz. So the first thing about, and these kind of tie together, so let me talk through this here for a second and see if I can get it all in my head correctly here. McGregor is going to be cutting at least a little bit of weight to get down to 155. Probably not a whole lot, because if I'm correct, when he fought at 170, he didn't cut any weight and weighed in at 168.
Right.
Correct? I don't think he had to cut any weight.
Right.
So my theory here is, if he cuts to 155, on fight day, he'll probably be fighting not too far off of 168 again in this fight. He'll probably be fighting maybe just a couple pounds lighter than that actually on fight day than like at what he fought Nate Diaz against. So I think he's probably going to be having a similar weight during this fight. So the gas tank you saw during that fight, don't expect it to be significantly different in this second fight. My second theory is where people say, he has bad cardio. I think in that first fight, yeah, he definitely gassed out early. Those spinning kicks were definitely taking a little something off of him.
Right.
He'd never fought at such a weight class, especially when his fights right before that were 28 pounds less. You know what I mean? Or I'm sorry, not 23 pounds less.
Yeah.
And of course, he gained some weight on fight day, and when he's actually there in the octagon, he's not weighing 145 and looking he's about to die on us like he does at weigh-ins. But, and that second fight, man, people say, he gassed out in the second. Did he, though? He won a 5-round decision. And the thing about this is, at the end of the third round, it looked like there was no way McGregor was going to win this fight at the end of the third. When he went to his corner, the part that stuck out to me the most is Kavanaugh in his corner had nothing to say at the end of the third. They were wiping off the sweat, they were giving him some water, and they were dead silent for about 30 seconds, just like, what do we do? It looked over. McGregor found something left in that gas tank and came out and put on one of the most incredible shows of heart in that fourth round to help win that fight. And I don't think that his gas tank is as bad as everyone says it is. He won a 5-round fight that went to decision against a guy with incredible cardio.
I'd argue that's all heart, too, because, he was walking hands on hips away from him, looking at Nate over the shoulder. He definitely looked gassed, but that's what separates good fighters from great fighters, is that level of heart that draws out. I think that's
underrated. He talks so much smack that I don't think people think he has the heart he does. He lives for this. He says it. He says, all I do is train. Sometimes it's hard to take what he says at face value, sure.
Yeah.
And he's fighting the guy that I think is the poster boy for heart. You know what I mean? Eddie Alvarez is probably the poster boy for having heart in a fight.
Absolutely.
But McGregor, I think the heart he has and the gas tank he has are being a little underrated here. I think he's going to come into this fight with just as much of a chip on his shoulder to win this fight as Eddie Alvarez is.
Yeah, that's a tough call to make, honestly. When he's going to get put into a dogfight with Eddie Alvarez, who's, in my opinion, a superior fighter to Nate Diaz, who's great in his own right, but at the moment, Eddie Alvarez is looking incredible. So long as his cardio holds up, which in the past it's always shown to hold up, he has great cardio. Back when he was in Bellator, he put on some wars.
Oh, I just watched his first fight that he had with Michael Chandler last night.
And Michael Chandler's no slouch either. If he was in the UFC, he would easily be top 5 in my opinion.
For sure. Yeah. He's a dog. There's a couple things about this fight that are very intriguing to me when I look at them on paper. One of them is the reach advantage McGregor has, and his record he has when he fights guys with a shorter reach. He's extremely good at keeping you right outside of his reach. He's very good at controlling that space. And for Eddie Alvarez to get in there and want to hit McGregor, he's going to have to get inside of that reach. And, McGregor, if there's anything he's good at, is he is an absolute technician with his boxing. I just think that if he's going to win this fight, it's going to be by keeping Alvarez at bay, you know what I mean? Keeping him just outside of that jab. And if Alvarez comes in, I think what you might see if McGregor gets a knockout, I think what might happen is you're going to have Alvarez, who likes to throw a lot of shots to the body. You might see him try and get that big right hand to the body and leave himself exposed on that left side or on the right side of his head where McGregor's left would come through.
Yeah.
And I think that if there's any way he knocks him out, he's going to catch Alvarez coming in for a body shot with the right and crack him with a hard left.
I honestly don't foresee that happening just because I mean, Eddie Alvarez is the champ for a reason. I think he's got a skilled trainer in Mark Henry in his corner.
Very skilled trainer.
And I don't think he's going to make any mistake like that. I think he's going to have a good game plan to avoid those, in my opinion, pretty predictable big shots from McGregor. I shouldn't say predictable in a certain sense, but he's got great movement, but his big shot is that step back left counter he likes to throw. And if Alvarez wants to get into the box and go toe-to-toe with McGregor, I think he's going to be smart enough to know how to evade that heavy left.
He very well
I
might
don't
be.
think it's something that he hasn't seen before. I think he's going to be able to find a way around it and get into his game plan.
Yeah, you're definitely right. I don't think he's going to make any silly mistakes, but you never know. McGregor, if there's one thing he can do, he has that sniper precision where he can just find your chin from different angles. And another interesting thing I kind of want to discuss is, a lot of people say that on the ground, this fight's going to be an absolute wash with Alvarez as the clear winner on the ground.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is that they are both technically brown belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and McGregor's actually had his brown belt longer than Alvarez has. Now, some people argue that he looks more like a purple belt with the way he actually demonstrates his ability on the ground in fights, but technically they do have the same belt, and McGregor has had that belt longer, but the difference is the wrestling aspect of it. Alvarez's ability to get him to the ground, keep him on the ground, win that takedown battle. But I think McGregor's pretty good at actually defending takedowns. I think he's shown a pretty good ability to sprawl out of a takedown.
He has the toughest wrestler he faced was Chad Mendez, but that's one of Alvarez's big games. Is he is a good takedown artist. He was a wrestler. I don't believe he was a collegiate wrestler. I want to say he was a state champ in high school, but still, after years of training, he's got an explosive double leg takedown, and Conor's shown that he's susceptible to that. Nate's not a good wrestler. He's not a great takedown wrestler. He's got good jits.
He's a good jiu-jitsu artist, but he's not necessarily the best at getting you down to the ground.
That's another factor that McGregor's going to have to look out for is the takedown. That's another factor that's going to be scary for him. That's why I think it's a tough matchup for McGregor. I mean, in my opinion, though, like we were saying earlier, it might be his best option at lightweight. But it's definitely not an easy fight and one that I don't see too promising for him.
So here's what I think. I think Alvarez does have a clear advantage where he doesn't ever have to worry about McGregor probably taking this to the ground. He doesn't have to worry about that. McGregor does have to worry about the takedown. And I could see Alvarez faking takedowns early because McGregor's probably going to be thinking in his head, he's going to try and take this to the ground, work me down there on the ground, and try and just grind this fight out as much as he can. I think Alvarez has the ability to just say, let me start early faking takedowns to make him think I will, maybe open up some shots here on the feet. That's a pretty big thing you can have. Someone posted on Reddit, I believe it was today or yesterday. Again, how credible is this? Probably not very at all. But they said that a friend of a friend took a picture of him and of Alvarez and Woodley together at the airport flying to MSG, and he had told Woodley that he's not planning on basically shooting for takedowns all fight like some people think he is.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting tidbit. Who knows what he's actually going to do in this fight?
I honestly never expected him to utilize his wrestling as a whole because
He
he's
doesn't do
got
it that
good
much, honestly.
stand-up.
I feel like he's more comfortable probably in his stand-up than on the ground. It sure seems like it in most of his fights.
What most people don't realize is I think that his takedown game is more of a it's just another asset of his game. That's not the one-dimensional thing that he goes to. He's predominantly a striker, and then he uses those takedowns to throw you off. That's part of his game plan. It gets you thinking, because when you start thinking takedown, like you were saying, I don't know if he'll even feint it. I'm sure he'll be feinting some of those takedowns, but eventually he's going to shoot in and try and take him down, because once he does get him to the ground, Conor's going to have to keep thinking about that, and he's going to have to get the gears working, and he's going to have to readjust his game plan and kind of see where he goes from there.
Another interesting thing, Alvarez has been cracked a lot in his time as a fighter.
Yeah.
He gets rocked often, and that's a scary thing against a guy like McGregor, who definitely has the ability to rock you.
Right.
We noticed when he fought Diaz, he couldn't quite take him out, but knocking a guy like Diaz down 3 times, getting him about as close to a knockout as you possibly could without actually finishing the job, it's pretty impressive for a guy that's notoriously got a pretty great chin. So Alvarez, who, he's been rocked several times, but he fights through it very often, is able to recover pretty quickly and get himself back in the fight. I would not be shocked to see him get rocked in the first or second round, but be able to take it into the championship rounds, even though he withstands maybe a storm early. I think Conor, he's one of those guys that always brings the storm early in a fight. Always brings a storm early. He's not a guy that likes he's not a feel out period guy. If anyone's feeling out the period, they're going to be feeling out a couple jabs or a couple strong left hooks from Conor, at least attempting to get those straight lefts or those hooks coming in. Neither of these guys are going to try and feel anything out. The only thing they're going to be feeling is going to be glove to chin in that first round.
I definitely think that Conor's best bet at winning this fight is an early TKO. I don't think that if it goes to the later rounds, third, fourth, and once we're in the championship rounds, I don't think he's going to have the gas tank to put him away. Yeah, he's got the heart to kind of put some pressure on, land a couple big shots.
So does Alvarez. That's the thing. They both have heart,
man.
Man.
But Alvarez also has cardio. He's been there before. He's been deep in those championship rounds multiple times. I mean, what is it? This would be he's been to the championship rounds, I believe, 3 times, and I think only one of them he might have lost.
He lost in the 4th round to Chandler in the first time. He actually got choked out and tapped in that fight. Like I said, I just watched it last night, so I have the benefit of it being fresh in my mind. But another thing, you said he has great cardio. The Diaz brothers are known for their cardio, and McGregor was able to outlast one 5 rounds. So I that's what I'm saying. I think his cardio is being a little underrated, where people are saying, Alvarez can out cardio him. A guy who's known as a master of cardio in Nate Diaz, he was able to at least keep up with him through 5.
To be fair, Nate's never been to the 5th round either. I mean, they have great cardio, but
there comes a point you need that championship round experience.
He's mainly been fighting in 3-round fights. Now, his brother's been in a few championship fights, with Carlos Condit, and he's shown he's got the gas tank. But we'd never seen Nate go 5 rounds, so that was interesting. I think that kind of played a factor into it a little bit.
It definitely could have. But, Nate looked good in the 5th.
Yep, he definitely did. But it's definitely going to be an interesting matchup. I just don't see Conor retaining the level of power he has in those first 2 rounds. And if it goes past the 2nd round, I think Alvarez takes it handily. The first 2 rounds, I'd see Conor, potentially knocking him out.
I said this isn't what we want. We don't want to say if this and this happens. What's your prediction? We need a legit, straight-up prediction. Who wins and how do they win it?
My prediction, Eddie Alvarez by 3rd round knockout.
Okay, see, that's what I wanted to hear. Because, like I said, everyone says if it goes early, McGregor could take it. If it goes late, I want to know what you actually think is going to happen.
I think he's going to bring the junkyard dog that 3rd round. I think he's going to get some life in him, and I think he's going to put him away. He's going to bring it to McGregor like McGregor's never had it brought to him before.
That's very possible, but I also think this might be the best McGregor we've ever seen in the UFC.
Yeah.
Kavanaugh said at 145 was too cold, 170 was too hot, and 155 feels about just right for McGregor. Mm-hmm. I definitely think that's going to be the case. We might see a McGregor like we've never seen before at this weight.
It's possible.
But at the same time, he's fighting a dog. You know what I mean?
He's fighting a dog, junkyard dog in Eddie Alvarez.
Hear me out. If I had to bet money, because this fight to me is so neck and neck talent-wise, if I had to bet money, I'd bet money on Alvarez because he's the underdog in the fight. You'd make more money betting on Alvarez. I would bet money on Alvarez.
Yeah.
But because I'm not betting money and I'm straight up making a prediction of what I think will happen, I think... And this is, I've been trying to study this fight as much as I can. I could be so wrong. For all we know, Alvarez could one-punch Conor.
Yeah,
you never
absolutely.
know.
That's what makes this sport fantastic.
I think what could happen, because Conor is a counter-puncher. Eddie sometimes gets a little worked up and can throw some wild, lazy shots from the hip. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets rocked early in the fight, but is able to recover. And maybe the 2nd or 3rd round, maybe he senses blood and tries to throw 1 or 2 from the hip, and Conor counter punches and is able to land 1 on the chin. I would predict Conor McGregor wins this. Like I said, I think he's going to rock him early, and that will not be the end of the fight. Mm-hmm. I think Alvarez will recover and put a storm on McGregor at some point.
Yeah.
I just think that I will go with the 3rd round as well. I will say McGregor wins the 1st. I think Alvarez wins the 2nd, and I think Alvarez gets him close, kind of like what happened in the 3rd between Diaz and Conor. I think he gets close to finishing him in the second. He comes out swinging in the third, and after having time to recover, McGregor's going to be able to catch him in the third.
I can definitely see that happening too. And like I said, in my opinion, this is his easiest matchup, you know, in the top 5. Those are some killers there. So Conor's got to be chomping at the bits that, you know, he's getting the champ, and in my opinion, probably his easiest matchup, you know, which is kind of sad to say, but that's not saying a lot because, I mean, he's not an easy matchup for anybody, but stylistically, compared to the other people in the top 5, that's not an easy matchup.
I mean, I want McGregor to win more so just for the entertainment aspect of it, too. Could you imagine when he puts that second strap on the shoulder, Rogan approaches him with that mic, and he just drops some knowledge on us right there in the middle of the octagon? Just how incredible of a moment. I mean, if McGregor wins 2 titles in MSG, holy cow, man. We would have huge. A spectacle. And, I mean, and what are you going to say from now on? People say he doesn't deserve this title fight because he's never beat a legit, like, top 5 guy at lightweight, even though he did beat Nate Diaz, who was technically a top 5 guy at the time.
Right.
What would you have left to say about the guy if he's able to finish this fight? I think it's a better matchup for him than Nate Diaz, and just in the terms of his reach, I think that he had problems with the fact that he actually had to fight a guy a little bit longer than him. I don't think he was ever used to having that as a situation in a fight.
No, never.
No, never. And especially a guy who could take, you know, as he says, no one could take that left-hand shot. Someone could. He ran into a guy who took that left-hand shot.
Now that we think about that, he did fight Max Holloway, but Max Holloway is more of a natural featherweight.
That was like 21-year-old Max Holloway, though.
Yeah, that was
a
very
young
good point.
Max Holloway.
But yeah, that was you know,
that was pre what
couple
9
moons
fight
ago.
That was like pre 9 fight win streak.
Yeah, that was a couple moons ago.
Yeah, that's a brand new Max Holloway we're talking about here. But you'll take Alvarez, I'll take McGregor. Man, will that be a fun fight? We'll be watching it together. Probably. I'm
excited.
I'm a little nervous because I know we're on opposite sides of the fence here.
Yeah.
And we both predict a 3rd round finish in this fight. Like I said, I predict McGregor to win the first, Alvarez to win the second. Alvarez to come a little maybe not as technically sound at the beginning of the 3rd, trying to come out and finish, and McGregor counter punches after getting a breather. So, and you said you have Alvarez finishing the fight with TKO in the 3rd.
Yep.
Oh,
even possibly a submission. I mean,
wow.
I'm not the biggest Eddie Alvarez fan. I do like him, and that's why
it's hard not to like.
I just want to see a good fight. To be completely honest, I like Eddie Alvarez. He's an Everton fan. You know, shouts out Everton Prem League after a bad Chelsea week. But you know, that's besides this. But I don't know. So long as it's a good fight, I'll enjoy it, regardless of the outcome. But in my mind, I just don't see this going McGregor's way outside of an early 1st or 2nd round TKO.
Yeah, it's going to be a great fight.